Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Brian Tann, and this is another edition of Tann Talks. What's going on, everybody? I am your host, Brian Tann, and with me, as always, as she is every Monday, is Melinda D. Melinda, what's going on?
Hey, hey.
Yep, another week, another discussion of the Winchesters. All right, and I'll tell you what. In my opinion, this episode is where I think this show starts to find its groove.
Yeah,
It starts to, and I told you that last week. I
you
told
did.
you.
And I as I put it on yesterday, I was like, all right, this is kind of like if it doesn't get me now, it's not gonna get me and I'm done.
Right. And it worked. And this is where I think that this episode, Anita Stewart in the house as always. Thank you so much. Anita's here listening to us
Hi.
talk the Winchesters. And I'll tell you what, this is where not only does it hit its stride, but this episode is also, I think, where it starts to find its own way.
Yeah,
Because,
I was gonna show everyone. I left it downstairs though. I
oh
went to the
no.
Renaissance fair with my kids yesterday, and I picked
Okay.
up a quill. And as I picked it up, I'm like, man, this feels really Men of Lettery.
That is awesome.
Like as
Oh,
I
and for
picked it up,
those,
I went, oh, Sam Winchester.
and I should point this out as well that Winchester season 1 is now on HBO Max. I'm gonna say Netflix. It's on
It is?
HBO Max now. Yep, it is on HBO
Okay,
Max now. So you do not have to just go to the CW. You can watch
cool.
it on HBO Max. And I'll tell you what. Now I'm checking this out here. Now the Winchesters has it's showing a 100% average tomato meter score with a 55% average audience score. Now, I get it. The first episode is kind of iffy. Episode 2 is a little bit better, but I think this third episode, and then of course, once again, I couldn't help myself. I skipped to the fourth episode.
Of course.
This is a good series. This is a really good series. I'm
I
really like, no, go ahead, go ahead.
no. Yeah, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, yeah, this is good, and I'll tell you what. I went to Twitter and I said I want season 2 of the Winchesters. I mean, still a long way to go, not even halfway done yet, but there's a lot going on, especially in this episode. So let's go right into this episode. All right, this episode is titled "You're a Lost Little Girl," and we meet this little girl Carrie at first, who's looking for her stuffed animal, and she gets on the CB, and we find out that she's calling her mother. Number one,
I
her
love
mom,
that.
that was so cute, but it's like,
That was
she ain't
so
that
cute.
far away. She's not that far away because I'm sorry, she's reaching her on the CB. Like, eventually you're gonna go out of range of someone's radio, right?
Yeah, and I like that it again, it cements the what
The
time
times.
period we're in.
Right. Because that was our those were our smartphones back then. If you were traveling, that was your
Yeah.
GPS, that was your ways, because you would get on the CB and ask if there were any Smoky Bears in your kitchen, which is why the movie Smokey and the Bandit, Highway Patrol were referred to as Smokey Bear.
What would your CB handle be?
Oh, jeez. I think I would probably have I'd probably be Big Daddy 412.
Okay.
Either Big Daddy 412 or Luke Cage 412.
Okay.
Or Papa Luke. One of those three. Papa Luke. What would
Sounds
yours
fair.
be? What would yours
Kilted
be?
bunny.
Kilted Bunny, of course. I don't even know why I bothered to ask.
Actually, so I go by two. Like you can find me online as either Kilted Bunny or as an aside, I do something different called letterboxing, which is hand carved stamps and stuff. And on there and in the scuba realm, my tag is "Don't be jelly" because my tag sign is a jellyfish.
Oh, that's there
So
you
I'm
go.
either kiss the bunny or don't be jelly. So I would be one of those two.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, but that's what I would be. So, but it was real cute. She's calling her mom on the CB because, and that was such a little kid thing. Can you come home and help me find it? That was
My
just.
kids just now. I'm like, get your stuff out of the room because I have to record. And
Mm-hmm.
literally, as I'm closing the door, as we're about to go live, my daughter goes, "Can you give me time on FaceTime?" Child, you have another parent. It's always busy. Like, can you get this for me? No, I'm busy. Or in this
Yeah,
mom's case, I'm on the road.
right. And I'll tell you
And it really
what.
illustrated that single mom thing. Like when she
Yeah,
goes, the single parent struggle of, we need this paycheck. So that tells us a
right.
lot about this family and kind of sets up the
The
relationship
whole
that we get
thing.
into later in this episode.
Right. Especially because they look at it as, there's this little girl. She's about, I think they said that she's 8 and her brother's 12. And her brother really looks out for her. And so she's looking for her bunny. She finds it, but then there's a sack on the floor. And first I'm like, what? You can't see a big old sack on your floor? And then it comes out and grabs her. And we find out later this is Bori Baba, a
Well, did you
North
catch their
in
names, the kids' names?
yeah, Ford and Carrie. Yes, I did.
And I was like,
Ford
oh,
and
I wonder
Carrie.
that's gotta be, a reference to Star Wars, right? Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford.
Oh, it definitely has. It has to be because at first when it came out as Carrie, I'm like, ooh, is she gonna be a telekinetic?
Okay,
But
yeah, that's a different kind of Carrie. But
but
I
there's
know, like,
no
I think
but
Star Wars was in the 70s, so my husband
yeah
was like, they weren't named for the show, like, in universe. I'm like, no, that was
that
for the
that
fans.
that
That's for the
that was for the
viewers.
fans because this is 1972. We're still 5 years away from Star Wars. Like
Right, that was for us, not for them.
that was for us, yeah. So it comes to find out that that Carrie is missing. So John, now there's two different storylines going on here. It's
Mhm.
the Ford and
Still got
Carrie
Monster of the Week.
storyline. Yeah, we still got our monster of the week, but now we have the overarching story
Yeah.
of Ada is searching for the demon, the partner of the demon that possessed her. And this was the same demon that had attacked John and Mary in the very first episode. Not the one that they're hunting, but the partner. So Ada and because you remember last week in Teach Your Children Well, Ada put herself in a trance to get the memory echo from
Which
the
was so
demon that
cool.
possessed her, which was really cool because I don't think because we didn't do anything like that in the parent episode. We didn't do anything like that. I don't
Yeah,
believe
I think the closest we ever get is, with the psychic. Not Missouri Mosley, but,
the rocker
yeah,
chick,
I cannot her name's totally escaping me.
Pamela.
Pamela, yes, that's the
But
closest we get, that kind
and
of thing, but it's still not the same.
and yeah, it's nowhere near the same. So this is brand new. So we're already getting something kind of brand new in this regard, which was really really cool. And so I want to talk a bit about the Ada Carlos storyline before we get into the John and Mary, because I'm sorry, the Carlos Ada storyline was so slamming. It was
Well,
slamming.
we started up also a little bit of a mini storyline. I don't know where it's gonna go, right? But,
Hmm.
with Lata too, we learned some stuff about her that we didn't
Exactly.
know. Um,
And Lata really becomes really, really important in this episode. Well, she was already important, but her worth as a character and the mystery of this new character really starts to come out in this episode.
yes,
And
and I
and
think,
we'll talk.
that yeah, I was gonna say, stick a pin in that one because I do wanna come
Yeah,
back to
well,
that.
because we'll talk about that one when we go
Agreed.
because that's a part of the main storyline.
Yeah,
So the side quest that I really like is how Ada is
side
searching
quest.
for this other searching for this demon, and I
Mhm.
really like how Carlos is already whining about being on stakeout. This is the most boring part of being a hunter,
Being a hunter,
and
yeah.
yep, and Ada's just sitting there trimming a bonsai. just chill as you can be, like whatever. And he goes, "You're sitting here with your little Zen garden project over here," and she's just looking at him with a little smile, whatever.
I love it. I loved it.
And
She's great.
and the demon gets the drop on them, and she, I think was it the demon goes after Carlos first, drags him to the back of the van, and then Ada comes out, opens up the back doors, and they work together and shove him into the back. And then the demon's like trapped, and he looks at her and goes, "How did you know I had a devil's trap?" She goes, I rode in the back of this thing for 3 states. I noticed everything. And my first thing was, well, does it look like a Jackson Pollock painting back there? Or that, I don't know why that was my first thought. But then, of course, he has the devil's trap. Yeah, well, because I'm a sicko like that. That's fine.
I do want to say this. And I don't remember if it comes, I think it's right after they catch the demon, right? I made the big point in the Parent show that, it's Dean's line, man, witches are nasty. They're always, mean and evil and spewing their body fluids everywhere, right? And we get the rabbit always bites. And we get Rowena, who's a very interesting character in that show, right?
Yes. I love Rowena, by the way.
I love Rowena, right? But she's, she's a mixed bag. She's not always a good guy. She's not always a bad guy. She's out.
She's an anti-hero. She's an anti-hero.
100%. But 99.9% of the witches we see, or in the Parent show are awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Bad characters, right?
Well, other than Rowena, who was your favorite witch? Who was your favorite witch other than Rowena?
Other than Rowena?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. You mean in the Supernatural series? Right?
Yeah, in the Parent series.
I really liked the Irish witch in the poker episode where he was gambling with their lives. Yeah.
She was a good character.
Yeah, there was the two, the guy and the wife.
Oh, those were James Marsters and Charisma Carpenter.
No, not those two.
Okay. From that poker episode, yeah. I was gonna
when Dean Winchester is super old.
Yes.
Right, and then Sam is going in, and they're like, "Sam, you can't play poker," and he wins.
Yeah, I did like that episode. But
I like the female witch. I'm done. I really like those characters. Those witches, they weren't evil.
They were just. They had the talent. That's what they were using to make their way. They just
wanted to live forever, and that's what they were doing. So were they using their witchcraft for good? No, but they were kind of neutral. They weren't
evil. They weren't good. They were just there. Yeah, and they were being fair. Yeah, that was a good episode. Now I like James Marsters and Charisma Carpenter's witches. They were fun. Yeah. I love them so much. And it was basically Battle of the Roses in War of the Roses in Supernatural. And I love how James Marsters, when they finally got it all figured out, he's like knocking on the door frantically. He's like, "Oh, real quick before you get comfortable," and grabs the hex bag. He was like, "Ooh, this was nasty."
And they were like super bitchy, like every married couple on the planet.
Right. Once you've been married for a while, you're like fussing at each other, but it's like, but stay out of our business, because if you say anything against, I can say it, but you can't.
Right. And then, now in the Winchesters, we have Ada, and she's not she's into the witchy stuff. And the demon makes the comment. I forget exactly what he said.
He called her a wannabe witch.
And I, as somebody who is not, I'll out myself. I'm going to pull myself out of the broom closet here, right? As a heathen and a witch. That's what we call it, the broom closet, because you can't always tell people. As a heathen pagan witch, it's nice to see we have a positive witch here.
Right.
That seems to be using, as of right now, using that knowledge and learning how to do that for good. And it's not, I know witchcraft, so I'm going to hex you, and, hex bags. And I like that too. The hex, we put up hex bags. Every time we've seen hex bags, they're in
something bad.
Something bad. And I know I'm jumping ahead in the episode to the main, to the kids.
Yeah.
But No, Mary says we put hex bags up to protect
the house.
and protect
the house is already monster proof, but this is
right,
like
so
extra.
it was nice to see that, and that probably should have gone in my review at the end, but I'm saying it in advance now. It was nice to see that.
That's cool. It was. And I'll tell you what I really like about Ada's storyline in this is that she's so cool, calm, and collected.
Yes.
But she even says a demon can possess anything that's living. It doesn't have to be human or animal.
That was cool with the plant. I hadn't seen that before. That was really neat.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, little stuff like this is what's really making this show find its own way. And I'll tell you what, shout out to you, Anita, for basically letting us know. Sorry, I have like all kinds of like foolishness going on over here. Is that, she did say that it does get better and it does start to find its own way. And the fact that like that little bit of lore right there was so cool. She gets all the information. She gets what she needs. Not at all. And I really like how the demon is like, all right, just send me home already. And she goes, I didn't tell you I was doing that.
Yeah, that was so cool.
And then she even says, we might need them later. And I like how when the demon looks at Carlos, goes, don't look at me, man. She's got me shocked for today as well. I don't know what the hell she's going to do.
Yeah,
and
that was neat.
And she actually used her blood, so she used her blood ritual to put the demon in the bonsai. I'm like, whoa. That was like, I did not see that coming. And I'll tell you what, I don't even know if Rowena would have done something like that. Because like Rowena would have done something overt, like real overt. This is worse, I think.
Dramatic.
I mean, I'm sure she probably could, but I mean, she probably wouldn't think to do it. I think that she would probably think to do something different. And of course, Anita's giving us the mild spoiler that the plant demon comes back too. I can't wait for that. I'm sure he's probably going to be pissed off. Although,
right? Could you imagine being a plant?
I would be mad as hell if I was a plant. But what I think it would be funny as hell. What if the demon like grew a face on the trunk and was like, what the hell? Like, now we've got Groot and Supernatural. But what I really, really liked about that, though, is that we found out a lot about the Akrida. We found out that, now, number one, these two demons were defectors from hell. They defected from hell because of the Akrida. Because that lets you know.
Demons, though, they tend to fly. I mean, look at how many times they would split between Abaddon and Crowley and Asmodeus and.
Yeah, but the difference between that, though, is that their loyalty is still to hell in and of itself, not to a leader, but to hell.
True.
They're trying to join up with someone completely different. They're not switching between Satan and Crowley or a Knight of Hell versus another Knight of Hell. They're defecting from hell completely. That lets you know how terrifying the Akrida are. Because you even notice in some instances, demons they did their own thing when it came to other monsters. They're like, whatever, you do you, I'm doing me. As long as you don't get in my way, I don't care. Now they're like, whoa, the Akrida? Yeah, we're joining you guys. And then we get some very, very useful information that the Akrida took a page out of the demon's playbook. And we find out that the leader has possessed someone.
Yes. And we see who that someone is at the end of the episode.
Yes, we do find out at the end of the episode that now we notice, though, at the very beginning, Carlos mentions that the new DJ is really, really doing good, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? This is your spoiler alert, blah, 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 blah. You should know this by now. It's a reaction video. It turns out that DJ, Rockin' Roxy, who's playing some great music, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Rockin' Roxy is the hooded Akrida that is capturing who captured the essence of Latunda last week in the last episode. So that's also a big reveal.
What she talks about at the end, because you hear finally what that Carlos and them in their what's it? Not the bunker, the equivalent of the bunker. Their safe house.
Their little clubhouse, their little safe house. Yeah.
You hear Rock and Roxy come over, and she says, we're putting out a call to come descend on our beloved Lawrence, Kansas.
Right. And of course, you don't think about that at first. Right. You don't think about that at first.
Because we don't know yet that it's her until I think that happens. And then it does some like John's doing something. And then we go to her and the Akrida and what's going on at the very, very end of the episode.
Right. And for me, this is also sort of a nod to The Warriors, the 1979 film The Warriors, because the DJ in that film put out a lot of information to the other gangs in that movie. That's how they pass
in John Wick Chapter 4 too.
Yeah, the whole. Well, I haven't seen John Wick Chapter 4 yet, but
all right, well, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but almost the back end of that movie is because John has the UMPA contract on him.
Yeah, of
course. The DJ will get on and is giving information to the other assassins who are hunting John Wick. And she's giving live updates over the radio station, just like how this is with Roxy. So that seems to be a pretty popular storytelling device right now.
Well, that's one of the really, really good ways to do that, though. If you need to give information out to a bunch of people at one time, do it over the radio, because everyone listens to the radio.
Especially in that time, because we didn't have XM, and that was what, 8-track? Like we didn't have compact discs. I don't even know.
No, we had it. There were 8 tracks. We did. Yeah, it was 8 tracks. 8 tracks were the prime. 8 tracks and records were.
Yeah, so it was either the live radio, which a lot of people listen to.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because a lot of cars didn't like. There were certain cars. I believe having an 8-track player was a luxury in a lot of cars back then. But you didn't have record players in cars back then. It didn't work like that back then. You know what I mean?
And you might have had record players in your house, but I mean, a cheap AM/FM radio was a staple.
Went a long way, yeah. Because you also have to keep in mind, it wasn't. But now this show's taking place in like 1972. It was still about 16 years, maybe a few more, that most people were still listening. Well, 20 to 30 years that people were listening to the radio. And people started to get TVs in their house in the mid to late 50s. So a lot of folks were still listening to radios. Like right now, like in today, the majority of us have the HD TVs or smart TV. That wasn't the case even 10, 12, 13 years ago. People didn't start switching from the tube TVs to HD TVs until all the TV networks switched to HD.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, nowadays, people we don't even refer to them as HD TVs anymore. It's just TV.
And we can record and watch stuff on demand. And you couldn't do that then. Like, I remember as a kid growing up in the 90s, you call in and they'd play your song and you'd rush to record it on your, tape cassette.
On your tape deck. Yeah.
None of that existed then. It was literally listened, and that's how you got news, and that's how you got, all that stuff. So they're doing a really good job setting up the environment and the time period that we're working in.
Because I've had a few instances where I almost said, why don't you just call on your phone? Oh.
Yeah. Wait, why don't you just look this up? Oh, she's got to call another country. She can't just get on the internet. She can't Google this.
Right. And that's why even now, shifting to the John, Lata, Mary storyline, we find out that the Bodhi Baba, a North Indian boogeyman, is who got Carrie. And Lata, starts to say, this is a story that came from where I was born. And of course, John, we find out a little bit more about Lata, where she says, her parents died.
Yeah, John asks, and Mary, her parents are dead.
Right. So when they go to deal with, they go to the house to investigate and find out about the kid Ford. Lata's making the phone calls.
She said
And
she
this is
hesitates. She goes, I have to call someone. And
right.
then you hear her talking in one of the languages from India. I know there are a number of them, so I don't want to say Hindi or whatever and be wrong.
Right.
But we hear her talking. So nobody else knows what she's saying.
Right. And I really like the fact that they're not subtitling her dialogue, because if they don't know, we shouldn't know.
They do.
Like, well, I mean, we don't know. Well, that's right. Yeah, they do. I must have missed it. But the thing is,
I only watch TV with subtitles because I have a really hard
same
time
here. Same here.
hearing, and that's the only reason I know that. So
Yeah, but I mean, initially though, if you don't watch it with subtitles, they're not so much translating. You know
right.
what I mean? They're not, and I don't feel that they should translate. Is what I meant. Because
Yes.
if they don't understand, we shouldn't understand. Like, I think the only time in a film or television show that you should translate another language is twofold. One, if you translate it properly, well, for the most. And then B, if it's a film like one of my favorite films, Blood In, Blood Out, where most of the dialogue is Spanish, specifically because a lot of the
You're
characters
watching
are
a foreign language film.
right. Granted, there are people that are speaking English, but if it's a bilingual film, then that's when you should probably, because so that way you can follow the story and what's being said. However,
Yeah, okay.
when John and Mary go, they find Ford, and we find, and this is very interesting because we're getting a little bit more into John's past. The cop that's in charge of the investigation is his ex-fiance, which is intrigue.
That was
And there's a little bit of jealousy between her seeing John with Mary, and even Mary is kind of looking at him like, okay, really? Who's this? I kind of like the love triangle that we're kind of getting, the pseudo relationship triangle that we're getting here, because you're getting two different dynamics. And once again, though, neither one of them is the bad guy. Number one, John isn't with either one of them, but we're not getting that drama for drama's sake because, oh, well, you had a past or you're moving on, so I'm going to be contentious. I'm glad we're not getting that, because that's just, to me, that's lazy. That's very lazy. It's not necessary. These two women are strong enough, independent enough that, like, all right, if your ex shows up that you're kind of on friendly terms with another female or another male, depending on who you're with, yeah, you're going to be like, oh, so you moved on. Okay. You're going to try to gauge what's up. And if there's someone who's new in your life and they've been kind of clammed up about their past, yeah, you're going to be like, oh, okay, so what's going on here? It was very natural, and I love how Ford instantly sees through their BS when they try to say, hey, listen, we got to do this and blah, blah, blah. Look, I know there's something more going on. What's happening? And they even say, and I like how Ford coins their team. Buffy, it was the Scooby Gang. In Angel, it was Team Angel. Now we've got the Monster Club.
Yeah, I like that.
I would have preferred Monster Squad, but okay.
That's what I thought they were.
But I thought it was kind of cute. I think it's kind of cute how we got to that, though, where he's the kid that coins it. And I like the fact that, they because we've seen in the Parent series, and we saw it in the previous episode, how they're able to lie about what they do. And I like that we had a kid see through their lie.
So right through their bullshit so fast. I'm like, man, kids are awesome like that.
Oh, yeah. They can see through your crap so easy.
So quick.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is that I think it's good for these, because you figure John and Mary are about 18, 19, 20 years old, in that range. So they're still kids that are moving into adulthood, but they seem to have almost forgotten that kids are smarter than they are. I think once we reach a certain age, we're just a little bit more stupid.
I think a lot of what happens, because I have this conversation with my kids too, right? Like, the people who are like, well, I don't get why you go to Ren fairs. Like, that's stupid. People, as you grow older, tend to lose that
age of
enjoyment
wonder.
of of wonder and of the like believing in that stuff, right? Like, and you lose that as you get older. The
Yeah,
ability to
you
believe.
get into the rat race. You get into the rat race of go to work, pay bills, pay taxes, pay rent, pay mortgage. Nothing else matters. Well, no, that's not the case.
Yep.
So shout out to young Ford, man. Shout out to young Ford. And but the Bori Baba figures, lures him in, and this is when Lata is telling John and Mary what they're up against. He gets lured in. And then, of course, Mary decides that she's going to go in. And she actually tells John, and she shows John a lot of trust. She goes, you found me once. You'll find me again. I know you will. I'm saving those kids.
Well, I really dug, before we got to that, John's like, what are these? And she says, they're hex bags. And she's like, herbs and dirt, and we hang them. And that's when she's talking about how the house is protected, because we learn that Mary and family, the Campbell family, keeps an eye on these kids, her neighbors.
Right. Right.
So they keep an eye on
which I think is really cool.
Yes,
I really
totally.
appreciate that. I really appreciate that, because you notice so much hunters cut themselves off from humans.
Yes.
And I think that really makes them lose some humanity. So the fact that the Campbell family keeps an eye on these kids, it's almost like it keeps them remembering what they're fighting for.
Well, I think it also speaks to, again, in setting up the universe we're living in, right? Like in the time period, you don't do that anymore.
Mm-mm. No, you don't.
Like, latchkey kids, they exist, but you don't talk about it because, oh my gosh, you're leaving your kid home alone for like 5 minutes, let alone a week while you're on a run.
Right.
And
not to mention the fact, do you know your neighbors? Do you know do you know any of your neighbors?
Actually. I'm lucky enough to live in my community. We've got little like subdivisions, and I live right on a cul-de-sac. So over the summer we'll have big cul-de-sac parties, and everyone just comes out with their barbecues and just hangs out.
That's cool.
So yeah, I can say honestly, I do know my neighbors.
Okay.
But it wasn't just like it took time to get to know, but like the point you're getting to, I'm going to assume, is that a lot of people
we don't know our
neighbors.
No, you see people to see them. Hey, how's it going? And you keep moving, but you don't know their kids. You don't know nothing about them. You don't look at your neighbor and say, hey, can you keep an eye on this, that, or the other? Like my one neighbor across the street. Yeah, but we're relatively friendly. I've invited them over for dinner. Like my neighbors, but it's been almost like over a year since any of my neighbors came to my house for dinner. You know what I mean? It just is what it is.
We've got some that like once a month they'll come over and we do geeky stuff. And like my kids just brought an Easter basket over for their kid. Like, so I'm lucky that I have that, but I know a lot of people don't. So I appreciated that we saw that. But my favorite part was then John, Ford is saying, what is that? And John's like, I don't know, dirt and stuff. So cool for John to be like, I don't know what the hell is going on, right? Because we're so used to John in the parent episode that has his notebook and wealth of information, and he's like, I don't know.
He just knows everything, right? And it's just like, I don't know, it's just crap in a bag. I mean, I don't know, but I love the fact
how really, really appreciated that.
And I like how you notice how John got a little bit jealous when Ford wanted to be in the Monster Club, and he goes, "Oh, great! Do I have to fight with you for the kids' for attention now?"
Yeah, for training.
That was so cute But I mean, what's funny is that John thinks he's smooth. Mary knows what that was about. Come on now, Mary knows. So we find out about Bori Baba, and Mary goes in to save Ford because he got sucked into the sack, which I never thought that I'd hear myself say out loud, but okay. And we see John and Lata have to develop a kind of kinship at this point. And of course, they use the CB. Now, this is the only part where I'm like, how is the CB radio going into a otherworldly dimension? Sack. I mean, okay. To suspend the disbelief, magic works. Magic works. Okay. The magic don't need to have rules. It works. And I like how Mary was reminding me of Judith Grimes with her hat and her sword in this episode. And I was like, it was so hard for me not to go, oh, she's so cute.
Yeah, the hat was very Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it had a nice Indiana Jones, Judith Grimes look to it, which was really cool. And I especially love when John says you have to give up what it used to lure you there. And she goes, Carrie, I'm out of here, get out of here. Rip. Dude, that little girl was not playing around. She's like, I'm done being in this thing. Not. I'm done. And it was Mary that was stuck because I think everyone had the chance to be a little bit vulnerable and give us an idea of who they are in this episode.
Yeah, what we learn about Bori Baba is that the only way to defeat Bori Baba is so they leave a part of themselves behind.
Yep.
And that's what the sack is. And they can only be killed when they're vulnerable in the real world.
Right. Sort of like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. So they have to lure Bori Baba out.
Right. And what I really appreciate, and we kind of talked about this for a second last week, because they made the reference that Lutunda is not native to America, but here.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned this because I was going to talk about this.
And this is our second week where a monster that is not native to North America,
yep,
was involved. You know, I think the way they worded it, we have two wayward monsters. What's going on?
And I'm digging that they are making a big deal out of it because we get a little bit of it in the parent series. We have monsters that are not native, right?
Yes.
We get the Striga. A Striga is not native.
Yeah.
We get a lot of things that are a version of it is seen everywhere, right? Demons, vampires. But we get Jinn, which are not native to here, and they mention it, but they don't make a big deal out of it being there, right? And then they explain it away later with the whole Men of Letters stuff,
right?
But I like that it is not common. Like it seemed to us in the parent series that was pretty common that they would just show up randomly in places, or that like when we had the Vanir and. The apple tree in the beginning in season 1. It was, when the Norse came here, they brought their beliefs and the tree with them, and that's why it's here. Okay, that makes sense.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Or even the episode where you had the deities that weren't of the Judeo-Christian faith.
I loved that episode.
That was a great episode.
I loved it.
Of course, it still kind of made me mad how they were just all taken out. It's like, come on, man. If they're deities, they shouldn't be taken out that easy. But
but they make that comment in another episode when we get Fortuna that they aren't getting, and in the very supernatural Christmas when it's the pagan deities, we're not getting the sacrifices we used to get, so we're not as powerful.
Which was a very, very good way to throw that out there. That you're absolutely right. But the whole point that we're making for those that are watching, is that we're finally making it a storytelling point of these creatures that are not native to the United States. Their lore is not native to the United States. What is going on? It is an actual big deal. So
sorry, I was talking to her.
So eventually, as it gets into, they take out Bori Baba, and we see the leader of the Akrida, who turns out to be Rockin' Roxy, absorbing the essence of Bori Baba, which really has me intrigued. Okay, what is going on here? When bad things take the essence of other bad things, something bad is about to happen.
And she sends the Akrida to get it and come back. So
right. So to put a pin really in on this episode really allows the Winchesters to not only stand on its own, but actually show that it is a good show.
Yeah, we had a really good balance of Monster of the Week and overarching plot.
Right. But we also get a lot of character building in this episode. A lot of character building of John, of Mary, of Lata, of Ada, and of Carlos.
I really like what they're doing with Lata. Like, I know we said we were going to come back to it, but you know, with the subtitles, we kind of touched on a little bit. I really, really, really liked that. You know, if you weren't watching it with subtitles, and I don't know if they subtitled it in the regular TV episode, but if you weren't, you get, she says, "Tell mom I'm okay." Well, we just heard that
her parents are dead.
Parents are dead. What do you mean, tell mom I'm okay?
Right.
You don't have parents.
Yeah. As far as we know, when your parents are dead, you can't tell them shit. They're dead.
So it makes me wonder. And by the way, she said, "Tell mom I'm okay." She's talking to a sibling. That's my guess.
Yeah. Or what if they think her mom is dead, but there's something more going on about her? I mean,
sorry, my dog is trying to bust in the door.
That's
all of a sudden, my door cracked. Get the salt. Get the salt. No, it's just.
We're gonna have to get you an iron. No, my dog's down here chewing on this big old bone, so she's happy. But I'll tell you what, this episode, and I will give a small spoiler for next week. I really appreciate, because one thing that they touched on a little bit in the Parent series, but not in full, is the aftermath of John's service in the Vietnam War. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more next week. And I think it was also very, very well done, because the one thing that I try to be very conscious of is the writing when it comes to mental health. And
yeah, I mean, John, the hill I will die on is John Winchester was an awful father.
Oh, he was a horrible father.
Horrible. And Mary Winchester was an awful mother.
Absolutely.
Awful mother. But I also, like you, mental health is a big soapbox I stand on, right? I have to try to temper that with PTSD.
Their trauma.
You know, here's my explicit warning. PTSD is a bitch. And the Vietnam War on top of that. So for anybody who is into fan fiction, I'm going to plug a fantastic fan fiction. I'm going to preface it with, it is extremely explicit. And it is a Destiel fan fiction. So if you are homophobic, don't read it. If you are not a fan of Dean and Cass, don't read it. But it is called Twist and Shout. Mm-hmm. It is set in the 60s, and it is very much uses the Vietnam War as a backdrop and a storytelling plot, as a storytelling device. But it is fantastic at showing the effects of PTSD and what that can do to people and relationships. And the only reason I bring that up now is because it's the Vietnam War, just like we have with John, right? So our character, I'm not going to spoil any of it if anybody's interested in reading it, but our characters also deal with the Vietnam War as a plot device. So it does a fantastic job with mental health and LGBTQ issues, especially in this time period, right? Which I know this show is not dealing with, but to backpedal back to PTSD is a bitch. Yes, John was an awful parent, but I have to try to remember that had a lot to do with it too.
Well, yeah, you figure being a non-vet and seeing his wife stuck to a ceiling and set on fire. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But all in all, well, you know what? Let's bring out Bartender Smiley. Let's give our final thoughts on this episode before we wrap it on up.
Sure. The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So, what can I get you?
All right, I'm gonna go first for this. I'm gonna go first this week.
Yeah.
This episode for me saves the series because I was ready to step away. I was ready to come up with every excuse possible to stop watching this series and write it off as garbage. This episode saves the series for me. This is easily, for me, a 0-shot rating. The storytelling was on point. I like the fact that we had that perfect mix of overarching story and monster of the week. But even still, that monster of the week was great at character building. And everything in this episode is leading us into the overarching story. It was great. Everyone in this story was so believable. The fact that they didn't go into the lazy writing of contentious love triangle because, oh, John had a past before he met Mary and blah, 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 blah. No, and even Mary, when she went on, because at the end of the episode, because at one point, John and Lata go see a movie, then Mary at the end of the episode goes to see a movie because it's her being okay with taking a break. Character growth. It was a good quality episode. It was creepy when it needed to be creepy. It was funny when it needed to be funny. We saw a new use of magic. We got to see a witch who isn't inherently evil or is only being good to save her own skin. So, all in all, this is a 0-shot rating for me. This is a series-saving episode, in my opinion.
I think I'm going to come in with you at this is a very strong episode. It got me to care about characters that I was really kind of on the fence about. So I'm starting now to care about these characters and what are they doing? You know, what's their motivation for doing what they're doing? Right? Because nobody gets into hunting. Nobody wakes up and goes, I want to get into hunting. You know, all of our hunters have a past. And so we're starting to learn about that and where they're coming from. You know, we're building the main villain. I'm really digging the multicultural aspect of this show. You know, that they're adding in all these monsters are coming from other places. You know, having a good witch, strong characters. No, I think you're right on.
Yeah. This is great. Like I said, this series is definitely on point. And I feel bad that I ever doubted Jensen Ackles. I really do. You know, if his name is on it, Supernatural is going to be good. I'm excited. Get us a season 2 of the Winchesters, please. I can't wait to get more into this. So next week's episode is Masters of War. This is a great episode. This episode we get a lot more character building for John as well as Carlos.
Okay.
It's
you
a good
already?
one. Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. Well, because
next episode.
Well, I was rewatching Your Lost Little Girl, and then I just got lazy. I didn't feel like clicking to stop. So
gotcha. So I do want to put this in. I have a headcanon, and I'm hoping I don't know if they'll address it, but in my headcanon is we meet some really fantastic Black hunters and witches in the Parent series.
Yes, we do.
Fantastic characters. And in my head, somewhere in their line, their generational line, is going to be Carrie or Ford. It's a grandparent, parent. It's like, because Ford was like, I want to stay in the Monster Club. Okay.
Yeah.
It would be awesome. Like in my head, some of those characters, that's where we got into hunting. It's a family thing for us because something happened to our mom, dad, whatever.
Right. Aunt,
right.
uncle.
So I don't think they'll do that. That's entirely headcanon fan fiction for me. But I think.
See, I would really like to get some additional Supernatural spinoffs where we can visit some of these characters in this world. Like the character Gordon had tremendous. Whether you like the character or hate the character, he was a great character.
Fantastic. You loved to hate
Gordon
him.
is a great character. He's one of those characters, you love to hate. And even when he had his unfortunate turn, it made him even more. I kind of wish we would have kept him around a little bit more, but
Yes, I
he
like
was too. But he was too dangerous to be kept alive. He was the Count Dooku, and he probably would have ended up killing Sam and Dean if
Yeah,
he
I could
was
see that.
if they hadn't taken him out. So make sure. So we'll be back next week for a Masters of War. Check us out Wednesday evening, where we're going to be talking The Mandalorian. This is the last week that we're going to have to do that because I have to work at 5:00 in the morning on Thursday. I'm not going to be able to stay up late on I have to wait. I have to get up at 5:00 in the morning Friday as well as Thursday. So kind of got to get it done a little bit on the soon tip. But so we'll be doing The Mandalorian with Katie Salidas on Wednesday. And then we'll be back next Monday talking Masters of War, episode 4 of the Winchesters season 1. If you're into the content, you're into what we do, make sure you like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel, the Plotaholics podcast. And that's really about it. When The Mandalorian is done, which is 2 more episodes, we're going to be going to... Why did my brain just freeze? Hold on.
Firefly.
Don't tell me. Firefly. Yes. We're going to be going to Firefly, which is going to be interesting because I have not watched Firefly. I have not watched a minute of Firefly, but it stars a lot of actors and actresses that I truly love. Gina Torres, Nathan Fillion, Adam Baldwin, Summer Glau. I mean, I love these people. And these are just the people whose names Stephen Tudyk, who I was just talking about him. Is it Tudyk? Yeah.
No, it's Alan Tudyk.
What did I call him?
Stephen Tudyk.
No, wrong guy.
Wrong guy. It's Alan Tudyk. And
Alan Tudyk. Yeah, because I was just talking about Tucker and Dale versus the Evil with someone at work today.
Yeah, Nathan Fillion, Jewel State.
Oh, right. So either way, it's gonna
Mark Shepard.
Oh wow, nice. So this is gonna be awesome. I can't wait. A lot of good stuff coming up on Tann Talks that you definitely are gonna want to be a part of. So like, share, and subscribe. And when you subscribe, you'll have the opportunity to be let known of our occasional videos or every video that we come up with. You know, we're doing stuff 2 days a week. You know, we start getting more people, we start getting more views. Maybe we'll see about adding some stuff. Who knows? And also make sure you keep in mind there's going to be a huge announcement where I'm going to be partnering with Joe Compton of Go Indie Now for a project that he and I have been talking about doing for the last few years, and it's finally going to come to fruition. Be on the lookout and listen up for all of that.
I don't even know what the announcement is, so I'm excited.
No, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome for sure. So with that, we're going to talk to you guys on Wednesday where we're going to be talking The Mandalorian. We're also going to talk about the trailer for Ahsoka because I told Melinda and...
I didn't watch it yet, so I will watch it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, spoiler alert for my thoughts on it. I love the trailer, which means that I'm not excited about the series. But we'll talk about that more on Wednesday. So for Melinda, I'm Bryan, and we'll talk to you guys on Wednesday.